From Caterpillars to Butterflies, Episode 13, How to Identify and Prioritize Your Core Values.
Welcome to the From Caterpillars to Butterflies Personal Growth Podcast. Just like the caterpillar is destined to become a butterfly, you too are designed for a beautiful transformation. This is where you go to grow and transform your life. And now, here's your host, Certified Life Coach, Charlene Dior.
Hey, this is Charlene, your host of the From Caterpillars to Butterflies Personal Growth Podcast, where we talk about all things growth. If it can help you grow, we are likely going to cover it right here on this show. Today, we're talking about values, which are guaranteed to help you grow. I think that most people never really think about what their values are. It's just not something that's top of mind, which can be problematic when you're going through life and you're not paying attention to how your decisions and actions line up with your values. Then you can really go down the wrong path and lose a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment in your life because you're not really aligned. It's so important to know what your values are. And so I want to just talk today about how you can identify what your values are and then what to do next. So I looked up the definition of values. It was defined as the relative worth or importance of something. So we're talking about the things that are important to you in your life as a whole. And when I talk about values in this episode, I'm really talking about your core values because we can value a lot of things, and we do. You know, we talked 2 weeks ago about our balance wheel and how we had these 8 different categories. And so there are things within those categories that we value. But at the center of the wheel, the balance wheel at the core, there's your values, and it impacts every other area of your life. And so those are your core values. Your core values determine how you spend your time, how you spend your money, your resources. They determine what you will and won't do, what you will and won't say, how you treat other people, how you require other people to treat you. It determines what you take a stand for and what you're quiet about and what you fight for and what you let slide, right? It makes up this whole sphere of really who you are and why you're doing what you're doing, why you're not doing what you're not doing, why you say what you say, why you don't say what you don't say, why you go where you go, why you don't go where you don't go, right? Everything that is you, it is really born from those core values. So it's important that you actually know what they are. And I think, again, most people just have never put a name to what their values are. So the goal here is that at the end of this podcast, or if you want to take some time and really reflect on it later, that you can really be able to say what your values are. There's this quote by Elvis Presley. He says, "Values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do." Kind of what I just said. Your values impact every area of your life. Your core values impact everything that you do. Ray E. Disney said, "It's not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are." So here's someone who kind of hems and haws over decisions. You have a hard time deciding what to do. Knowing your values is going to be critical for you. It's going to be critical for you. So how do you start to know what your values are? If you don't know what your values are, and if you cannot act in accordance with them, so you might know what they are, but you don't honor them, it's going to be really hard to have a fulfilling life. You're going to make bad decisions. You're going to focus on the wrong things and the wrong people. You won't be stable. You'll tend to be wishy-washy because you will sway and be tempted by what everyone else is doing or saying or what's cool or what's not cool, right? Because you don't know your own values. You can't stand in the truth of who you are and what you really find important and meaningful. So you'll just be wishy-washy and swaying. I think about my own evolution as a person and as Charlene and really becoming more of who I am. And, years ago, when I was in college, I could totally say that I didn't know exactly what I valued. I didn't know exactly what things meant to me. I made decisions that I shouldn't have made. I shared this before. I've dated men I shouldn't have dated because I just didn't know what I value. And even now, like, I'm such an advocate of learning. But when I was in college, like, I didn't care, right? Because I didn't really know really what my core values were. And so having a space and time after college and really going through a time where I was just like, what is this life thing all about? It really drove me to reflect on myself and reflect on what I value. And I take real pride in myself now. And not only that, but I really like myself because I know what I will or won't do because of what my values are. Someone posted on Facebook recently. She asked a question about how do you feel about the political environment right now? And I responded and I said, what I think is bad about the political environment right now is that everything is so divisive, which I talked a little bit about in my last podcast episode. But if you're a Republican, then you hate all things Democrat and vice versa. We're so divisive. And, I said that we're multifaceted people. We don't have to have extreme political views. But anyways, the point of the story is that the next day, someone had texted me, a mutual friend of me and the person who posted the comment. And she said, thank you for sharing that. It made me think differently about my own views. And I said, no problem. I'm just telling my truth. And that's the point that I wanted to edge in there is that when I know who I am and I know what I value and I know how I think and feel about things, I can say my truth even if no one else agrees with it, even if no one else is saying the same thing, even if I'm the only person, because a lot of people were saying, Trump is their problem with politics right now, right? But I can be myself because I know what I value and I stand for it all the time. Okay, so now let's get into some questions. I have about 20 questions, and I'll put these in the show notes for you so that you can go back to them and look at them at your leisure and really kind of reflect on them. Spend some time journaling on them, thinking about them, reflecting on them to really get a sense of what's driving who you are. So I'll just go through the list. What brings you joy? What makes you happy and brings you joy? What frustrates you? What are some of the things that really just tick you off and why? Where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your money? Where do you want to be spending your time and money? So maybe you're forced to spend it a certain way, but really deep inside you want to spend it a different way. What do you worry about repeatedly? Do you have any of the same worries over and over again? Recently, I had a tenant who had termites, and I was freaking out. I tell people I am a self-professed worry wart. But when I think about all the things that I worry about, I worry about my tenants, and I worry about making sure that they're safe and that there's nothing going on in the house that I don't know about. I think a lot of things could be hiding behind the walls. And I'm like, man, well, what if the ceiling falls down? What if the walls cave in? And so I know that I worry about them all the time. And so it tells me that I value providing a safe environment for my tenants. I value being a good person who takes care of other people. I take care of other people, right? So what are some of the things that you worry about all the time? I worry about money all the time too, to be honest, and not from the sense of how am I going to pay my bills today, but from the sense of how's my future going to be? I'm worried about my financial future, which is why I take some of the short-term risks that I take, is because I want to set myself up for financial success in the future. I value financial independence and wealth. And I know that because money is something that plagues me from time to time. So what are you most proud of? Thinking of some of your accomplishments, things that you've done, what are you most proud of? I am often proud of how I handle certain situations. I think about some of the conflicts that come up at work or some of the ugly emails people can send you, and I'm often proud of how I handle it, that I just don't get involved in the mess and I don't create drama out of it. What brings you a sense of fulfillment? Who do you admire and why? Who do you dislike and why? Several years ago, I had a coworker I used to sit next to at work, and I didn't like that guy. And it's not that he was a good guy. We had small talk sometimes. He was cool, but he just irked me for some reason. And a lot of times when we have certain feelings about other people, we either judge ourselves for feeling it or we think that it's them. But really, it's a cue to who we are, what we value. So paying attention to what you like, who you like, and who you don't like can help you pinpoint exactly what it is that you value. So for this coworker, again, nice guy. We had small talk. We were neighbors, right? But he's living here in Texas, and he has a house in Florida that he claims the homestead exemption on. The homestead exemption is for your primary residence. It's for people who live in their houses. It's a tax break, right? And then he has another house that he hasn't paid the mortgage on in years. He has a tenant renting the house out. He got a lawyer involved. The bank wants their money back, right? They want the house back. He got his lawyer involved to help fight them. And so he still just has this house that he's not paying any money on. And I don't want that to sound judgmental. Maybe it is, but ultimately what it says to me is that he doesn't share my values. So when I feel like, man, this guy's irking me, what is it? He's cool, but what is it? It's that he doesn't have the same values as me. And my values are doing the right thing and being honorable and repaying my debts and not claiming exemptions that aren't for me. I'm a stickler for the rules, to be quite honest. And so those are my values. And it's also important to note that it's okay that we don't all have the same values. I said earlier, the quote from Elvis Presley, he said that values are like fingerprints. Nobody's are the same. So it's completely okay that we don't have the exact same values as another person. I think that sometimes we have conflict and we close off relationships, we shut things down because there's a difference of values and we think it's just that we don't like them or that they're horrible or that they irk us. But really, it's just that we don't share the same values, and that's okay. My values are my values, your values are your values, and we don't have to let it define us. We don't have to let it define them, nor do we have to let those differences define the relationship. So when you start to kind of learn some of those things about yourself and what's going on beneath the surface, then it kind of relieves the pressure. I don't have to walk around hating this guy. Like, man, he just irks me. I get it now. We don't share the same values, and that's 100% okay. So thinking about who you dislike and why you dislike them. What do you think positively about? I said earlier, what do you worry about? But what are some of the recurring things that you think positively about? What's the biggest argument you've had? And how was it resolved? So the things that you fight about, the things that you go hard for, can help you identify what the value was underneath that. Why were you fighting so hard for that? Why didn't you just let that go? Because I'm sure that there are some battles that you pick. And if you don't ever pick a battle, there's also something there in your value system that's telling you as well. I said, I think probably 1 million times on this podcast, I was fired from my job several years ago. And I was fired because my boss was crazy. But, it was really just kind of a mess. And a lot of people knew it was a mess on her team. I even had people pull me to the side and say, hey, Charlene, you should really talk to such and such about moving to their team. I don't know what's going on over there, but you should talk to this guy. He can, he has a position open. He respects you. Talk to him, right? People were like trying to get me out of this crazy situation. But a lot of people were also saying, go talk to HR, which I did, and they were saying, go talk to the boss's boss and the boss's boss's boss. And it was kind of like, go fight this, go put up a fight. And I didn't really want to do that. One, because I knew that it would just be a bigger mess. I knew that, and I know from experience that, a lot of times when people get caught up in a lie or they're doing something shady, they just tell a new lie, right? They don't usually admit. So I just knew it was just going to be a mess. It was going to be he say, she, or she say, she say. It was going to be getting other people in the team involved and people on other teams involved and just really be a drama-filled event. And so I didn't do that because regardless of the outcome, I didn't want to be on her team. So either I was going to leave the company or change teams, but I wasn't going to stay on her team. So it wasn't important to me to fight for that position because I don't care. I can move on. Of course, I did not know I was going to be fired. But to me, that wasn't the battle that I wanted to fight. So what are some of the arguments that you will not fight? That tells you too, right? And so in my situation, I really valued not really having a mess. I valued peace over creating drama. And other people feel like, look, I'm going to stand up for myself every time, all the time. And that's just what I value, right? And it's okay. Either way, totally okay. When have you gone out of your way to help someone? And why did you do that? What sacrifices have you made for others? What are some of the biggest sacrifices you've made for others? What decisions do you regret? What decisions would you make again in a heartbeat? What things, people, events, etc., do you feel drawn to? What do you feel drawn to? I totally feel drawn to events and seminars. If there's an event or seminar going on, I'm like, man, I'm thinking hard about it, right? I feel drawn to it because I really enjoy growth. I enjoy learning. What things, people, events do you pull away from? What do you pull away from? I pull away from clubs. I went to see the game with a friend of mine a few weekends ago, and it was like really super crowded at a sports bar. I was not having fun until the game was over and everybody left. And then I had a great time. So yeah, what things, events, people, what talk do you pull away from? I'm not a cursor. I don't really say curse words. I pull away from sailor mouth people. So when you think about all these things, and even think about some of the questions maybe that I haven't posed here, what are some of the common themes that run through all of these things? Right? So some of the common themes that run through my values is peace and order and lack of drama. Wealth is something that runs through a lot of my things. The sacrifices that I've made for other people is often because I want to see them build wealth as well, right? And so these are the themes that run through my own list. So what are some of the values that keep coming up for you? What are they? And then I want you to take the most common themes, 3 to 5, no more than 10. These are likely your core values. So when you think about this list, this 3 to 5 list being your core value, how does that make you feel? Do you resonate with the words on your core values list? What you can also do is ask other people who know you well, what do they think your values are? That can also be telling. And when you hear what other people would say their values are based off of what they know about you, ask yourself, how does that make you feel? Do those values resonate with you? Are you surprised by what people are saying they think your values are? Why would they have that impression that those are your values, good or bad? And then I want you to take your core values and prioritize them. What are your highest values? sometimes we, one, have a hard time making decisions because there are multiple things at stake. I say I value building wealth, but I also value financial stability. I value having a cushion. I don't want to be stressed about money every month. So it's really important to me to live below my means, to have a fallback plan. And so sometimes these two values compete against each other, because I might have an opportunity to invest in something that could help me build wealth, but that means taking money out of my cushion, right? And so sometimes our values compete with each other and we have a hard time making decisions, not because we don't know what our values are, but because we don't know what order we value them. So you want to prioritize your values to help you make decisions. And then there's no regret at the end of it. I talked earlier about how I had an issue with my boss and everyone was saying, go talk to her boss. And I was saying, no, I don't want to. It's too much drama. And then I got fired. I was doing a speech recently. I had a speaking engagement and I told that story. And someone in the audience asked me, do you regret the decision that you made by not speaking up in hindsight, knowing that you were going to get fired? And I said, no. Why? Because I value having peace and order more than I value sticking up for myself. I kind of feel like it's never just been my thing to always have to defend myself and stick up for myself and fight this battle. And because I also said it didn't matter, I didn't want to work for her anyway. So when I think about the order of my values, I just value peace and harmony more than sticking up for myself, and I'd rather move on than to be in an environment where I have to fight to stick up for myself. So I don't regret it because those are my values. Somebody else might think, man, I should have stuck up for myself. I'm going to send them an email, a letter or something, right? And that's okay too. But when you know what your values are, when you've made a decision in alignment with your highest value, then you don't have to second guess yourself or regret or what did I do or I should have did this. It really helps with the buyer's remorse, so to speak. So you want to know in what order you place your value so that you can always choose the highest value when you are conflicted. And your values and the prioritization of your values is not consistent. It changes, right? So I just said that I value building wealth, and I also value having a stable financial footing. Sometimes I might decide, like last year, I invested a whole lot, and this year I'm not going to invest as much as I invested last year. Several years ago, I bought houses, and I really invested a lot and took money out of savings and really emptied my savings and put money on credit cards and things like that. And then the next few years, I was like, I really have to bring it down some. So even though I know my value, I know the prioritization, but that prioritization shifts. But as long as you know when it has shifted and you act in accordance during that shift, you understand, then you're in a good place. You're in a good place. And as your life evolves and you get married or you get divorced or your kids move out the house or you have new kids, then your values are going to shift again. And you want to make sure that you are always consciously aware of what your values are so that your behavior can align with your values. So you want to make sure after you've done all this, that you align your behavior, you align your words, you align your thoughts, you align your decisions, you align your environment, you align the people in your life, all around your core values. And when you're forced to choose between your core values, you want to choose the one that is the highest. Always act in accordance to your highest values. And when you are able to do that on a regular, consistent basis, then your life will be more fulfilling and more satisfying with less regrets and less how did I get here's. And you're really proud of what you've created, even when things don't go right, because you know that you chose your values. And I will just end with a quote by Stephen Covey. He says, begin each day with the blueprint of your deepest values, firmly in mind. Then, when challenges come, make decisions based on those values. Knowing what your values are, keeping them at the forefront of your mind is so critical for really creating the life that you want to have. It's critical for growing into the person that you most want to be.
Thanks for listening to the From Caterpillars to Butterflies podcast, your one-stop shop for all things personal growth. For today's show notes and even more tools and resources to help you transform the life you have into the life you love, go to www.fromcaterpillarstobutterflies.com.